Imagine walking into a cafe, ordering your morning latte, and trying to pay with a massive live cow. Thousands of years ago, long before bank apps or paper bills existed, everyday physical objects were the primary way people bought and sold things. Economists call this commodity money. It means the objects people used for currency had real practical value in everyday life, above and beyond being used to trade. This gave early humans a tremendous sense of psychological comfort. If trade broke down and no one accepted your money, you still had a backup plan. You could eat the salt, wear the furs, or milk that cow. Compare that to the money in your wallet today. If society collapsed tomorrow, a paper dollar wouldn't do you much good. You can't eat it, and it won't keep you warm. Because early civilizations needed that safety net, they naturally chose their most vital, life-sustaining resources to act as their currency. Trading life-saving goods built initial trust. But as villages grew into sprawling trade networks, communities had to figure out which of those useful items actually worked as scalable everyday money. Not every useful item could survive as currency. To work in everyday trade, an object had to pass 5 strict physical tests. Take the divisibility test. Look at this photo showing the massive scale of a cattle herd. A cow is immensely valuable, but you can't split a live cow into 100 smaller pieces to go buy a loaf of bread without destroying its value entirely. Grain solves that splitting problem perfectly, but it fails the durability test. A sack of wheat might hold a lot of purchasing power in September, but by January it can rot, grow mold, or get eaten by mice. Cows and grain kept ancient people alive, but their physical limitations, being impossible to divide or quick to spoil, meant they couldn't function as everyday savings. Inland societies found a better solution: salt. Salt naturally draws out moisture, meaning it lasts indefinitely without rotting. It passed the durability test with flying colors. This is an image of traditional salt blocks from Ethiopia. Miners could carve salt into consistent weights, which solved the divisibility test and gave merchants a reliable way to set standard prices for everything they sold. This system was so reliable that the Roman military paid its soldiers a salt allowance, known as a salarium. That ancient practice is where we get the modern word salary. Meanwhile, coastal societies solved their money problem by looking to the ocean. These are cowrie shells, strung together for trade. They are incredibly tough, naturally uniform in size, and lasted for centuries across African and Asian trade routes. Depending on where you lived, your money was whatever local resource was naturally scarce, but universally useful to your neighbors. As trade expanded globally, 2 materials emerged as the absolute champions of long-distance commerce: gold and silver. They passed all 5 money tests better than any organic material on Earth. Metals excel at portability. A merchant carries the value of a massive cattle herd in a tiny pouch of gold. Metals also pass consistency and divisibility perfectly. An ounce of gold is universally identical and easily divided into fractions. This image shows the front and back of an ancient Roman silver denarius. Because metal is so consistent, governments could stamp these coins to lock in their exact weight and purity, allowing merchants to trade quickly without weighing every piece. Gold and silver became the global standard because they were mathematically the most durable, portable, and easily standardized commodities available. Here is the irony of economic history. The exact trait that made early money so trustworthy, that backup plan of having physical, useful value, is what eventually tore the system apart. Imagine you are a jeweler in the 15th century. If the market price for raw gold suddenly spikes higher than the face value of the coins in your pocket, you have a financial incentive to melt the money down and sell the raw metal. Whenever demand for raw metal went up, people hoarded or melted their coins. The actual supply of money in towns would rapidly shrink, leaving people unable to buy goods and slowing the whole economy to a crawl. Economies faced the exact opposite danger when metal supplies suddenly exploded. In the 1500s, Spanish explorers discovered massive deposits of South American silver, like the towering Potosi Mountain shown here. These are hammered Spanish silver coins from that era. Millions of these poured into European markets. Because the physical supply of silver skyrocketed, the value of the metal plummeted, and the price of everyday goods quadrupled in response. As long as a nation's money was tied to a physical commodity, its economy was entirely at the mercy of unpredictable mining discoveries and shifting demands in the jewelry market. Modern central banks realized they could never stabilize an economy or control inflation if the money supply was dictated by random gold discoveries across the globe. Eventually, governments had to break the link between currency and physical gold completely. This culminated in 1971, when U.S. President Richard Nixon formally abandoned the gold standard. This transition created what we use today, fiat money. This is currency that works simply because the government stands behind it, and we all agree to use it, even though a dollar bill has no practical backup use on its own. By removing the practical usefulness of money, we eliminated the temptation to melt it down. We traded the false comfort of a physical backup plan for a financial system that could actually be managed, measured, and stabilized.